What's up, witches? My name is Taylor and I'm the Tempest Witch here on YouTube, and today I'm going to be redoing my dream sachet and I'm going to show you how to make your own. Let's just start out with, what is a sachet? I've heard a lot of people say it differently. Sachet is the most common one, but I don't know, sachet just works for me. Basically, it's a pouch of stuff. Usually herbs, spices, rocks, what have you. A lot of people right now are really clinging on to the jar aesthetic, which totally fine. I love me a good layered jar, spell bottles that are sealed, love it, aesthetic. But I think people think that spell jars are the only way to do spells, and so I wanted to give you an alternative that I use that you can use for yourself if you'd like. I redo my dream sachet about every year. I keep it in my room. If you watch the warding video, I have this in there just as a reference, but I don't tell you anything about it. So today I'm just gonna tell you about it, if that's cool. Basically, what I do is about every year I redo this because in here is a container of black salt, and black salt holds on to energy, and so it collects negative energy, kind of like an air purifier, but it holds on to it. So after about a year, all of that negative energy and all of those bad vibes, or call it what you want, is stuck in the black salt, and I don't want that to kind of permeate the rest of the bag and then make bad energy in my room. So I'm going to deconstruct my sachet and then reconstruct it and put it back in my room. So that's what I'm going to show you right now. Should have untied this beforehand. I'm starting off with color magic just because it's going to take me a second to get the knots out of this. In the sense of color magic, purple is very much the color of insight, divination, dreams, psychic abilities, and all that jazz. So I found a purple sachet, just this bag. I don't remember where I got it from, but it seemed to fit what I needed, and it's been working for a few years, so I just keep using the same one because I'm always a big fan of reusing stuff. That's another thing with spell bottles. A lot of people just throw them away once they're done and used, and it's like, you can just reuse the bottle. It's not a big deal. Good gods. There we go. All right, we're free. Sounds good. We've got our sachet. What I'm going to start off with is I've got this wax warmer here. I'm just going to light it. It's got lavender in it. Lavender for me is very associated with dreams and dream magic and divination and protection, so I figured it's a good scent to have around as I'm doing this, just for our own purposes. Do you need to go outside? Why are you stuck? How can you tell she's not a professional? She didn't turn her lights on beforehand. Whoopsie! So we've got our lavender burning. Now it's time to deconstruct this. So I always find that returning herbs back to the earth is just a good way to cycle through them. They've served their purpose, and now it's time to thank them and put them back to where they belong. And I will show you as we go through and restock it with what's actually in here. But for now, you can either take a charcoal disc like we do in the past, light it, and just burn that on top. I'm going to do that with a little bit of it, but most of it is going to go in my throw jar. Now, I don't see people talking a lot about this, but if you do, and I just don't see it, my bad. It's an offering jar to the earth. It's not an offering as in the sense of like deities you usually give sacrifices to, in the sense of like good things, so your best meat, the best cup of wine, the first cup of wine, things that are fresh and ripe and wonderful. Offering jars or throw jars are the remnants of what's left over after your spells that can decompose. And so then I take my offering jar, and when it's full, I go and I put it in my compost, so it does return back to the earth. And I find that's just a really good practice for me. If you don't have a compost, that's totally fine. If you just bring it out to a tree line and you throw it in the ground, it'll decompose there. If you throw it into a ditch, it'll decompose there. As long as it is all decomposable material, it should be safe. You're just putting it back on the earth. It's not littering if it can decompose. Now, if there's other stuff that's not decomposable in this, like the plastic jar that's holding the black salt, don't throw that in the ground because it decomposes over thousands of years and we don't want that. So just throw a jar. Anyway, I'm not going to burn all of this, but just as a thank you for serving your purpose. The essence of the flower does not go unnoticed. Appreciate all of the work you have done. And the rest of this we're gonna put in our throw jar. We're gonna take our black salt. And now this has all of the negative energy in it, so this is also what we're going to throw in here just to get rid of it. Because I wouldn't put this in my compost because we don't want to salt the earth because it wrecks the soil. But we'll leave that for a moment to itself. And then we've got this lovely incense. Like I said, I really like to cleanse with smoke cleansing, so using an incense stick is easiest for that. I'm going to use the bits and pieces from this just to do the outside, but the inner part, and then smoke it out, I'm going to use a lavender incense stick, just because, like I said, it is the most calming, and we're doing it in a clockwise motion to attract. We're not going to start the bag on fire, because that would be bad. This is the hardest part for me. It's like holding it open and getting it onto the inside. Because this is like nylon material, and I really don't want to melt that into my skin. We're attracting goodness and positive energy and abundance and peace and love, good things. All right. Now we're just gonna let that burn for a while. So, we've got our bag. Now what do we do with it? First we move our stuff so that we're not getting too much in the way. We're gonna move this as well. And then we just grab some herbs. I know it seems like a lot. It is, but I also have an abundance, so I try to use it as much as possible. So, I guess we'll just start from the top. All right, I had to let Thor in. I rearranged my jars just that they were in my order, just so I have them straight. He's currently napping. We're doing great. So, got our cleaned out sachet. It has a little bit in my left hand. Start with our basis, the protecting, and then the soothing, and then the divination. So we're gonna go in order. So start off with a base layer. Lavender can kind of fit into either of these categories, but I tend to use lavender more as a protective over a soothing. I still use it as a soothing herb. It's a catch-all for me. It's one of my favorite herbs. I use it for everything. And just so I don't forget which ones I've already used. And then rosemary, super cleansing, super protective, just all around great herb that everyone has in their kitchen. Caught it before it fell. Hang on. It's all on my leg. See, usually people don't get to see how much of a hot mess I am, but if you follow me on YouTube, you get to see this shit in real time. Crushed eggshells are one of the most protective things I've ever found in my craft. If you have chunks like I do, having a mortar and pestle real quick and just crushing up a little bit of it, because you don't need much, but it is the most protective thing that I've come across. Some people call it cascarilla powder. I do not, just because it's not what I was taught, but some people do call it that. Excellent. And in you go. Nettle. Nettle is also super protective. Got some growing outside. I've actually got some that's drying next to me right now, which is really cool because I have an abundance of it. Have a base layer of protection. And then these are hazelnut seeds from the hazelnut tree outside of my parents' house, or the ones that used to be there when I was growing up. And hazelnut is really good for protection, cleansing, stability, and just overall really positive energy. And because it's the tree that I'm familiar with and I grew up with, it adds that extra layer of familiarity. So I like using that. Now in our base layer, we're gonna need some black salt. The reason I wouldn't put black salt directly in there is it's a very fine particle. So I put it in these little plastic containers. I don't even know what this was for originally. It has Sharpie on it. It doesn't matter. I just put it in here. So as the energy flows through the bag, because energy is always moving, it gets trapped in here, and this is then what I can pour out like I showed you earlier, but then it's not getting all in the bag. And it's not making it impossible for me to then decompose this when I put it in my compost later. But where is my black salt? And real quick tip, if you don't know anything about black salt is just salt that is mixed with incense ashes and charcoal and wood ash if you got some. That makes it that very dark, pretty gray color. It's very protective and overall just a great thing to have in your apothecary. It's got so many uses. But we're gonna throw this bad boy into the bag. So it'll just sit there. Then on top of that, chamomile. Chamomile is obviously very soothing, very peaceful, really helps with dreaming, prophetic dreams, and overall just zen, which is what you want at night. You want to be able to sleep well. Roses, same thing. We want some happiness. We want just a lot of self-love. We don't want nightmares, things that'll cause us to have a bad night's sleep. So we throw that in there. And I'm forgetting. We like positive dreams and positive energy in our sleep, especially if you're like me and you have very vivid dreams. So a little bit of calendula is very healing, centering, grounding, overall just sunshine energy, which is what you want when you're sleeping. So we're gonna put some of that in there. Beautiful. This is kind of the way that I do magic, is I set things out and then I halfway through go, oh yeah, I should add that in too. And then for dreaming, I really like, they're not hallucinogens, but they're enlighteners, so mild hallucinogens. There we go. So right now I just have Damiana, wormwood, and mugwort. 3 herbs that I really enjoy working with, mugwort being my favorite, Damiana a close second, and wormwood I'm only getting to recently. It's what you make absinthe out of, actually. But they're all really good for psychic abilities, intuition, prophetic dreams, and I think that if you're like me and you really enjoy your dreams meaning something and giving you insight, it's a really good thing to put into a dream sachet. Beautiful. So we got this big old bag. The reason I like these is it's got a cinch. But as I showed you when we were first doing this, I like to tie it just so nothing can escape, nothing can just get everywhere, and overall it's just a lot cleaner. So I wrap it once. And you can do this with knot magic of intention. So every time you tie a knot, just going to have good dreams, going to be able to overcome my nightmares, because you can't really prevent nightmares, but to be able to see them for what they are and overcome them is important. To rest peacefully and to be rejuvenated in the morning. And there you have it, a dream sachet. This is something I really enjoy doing, and like I said, I only do it about every year, so it's super low maintenance. You just keep it in your room and just keep it out of the reach of children or animals, especially if you have cats. Put it somewhere they can't reach it, because you don't want them swatting at it, just because some of these things are mildly irritating and you don't want them to get involved in it, and you don't want herbs all over everything. So I'm just going to leave this next to the incense for a while, let it go over. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the teapot over the sachet, so as it burns, it will burn, and put the ashes on top of it, and then when it is done burning, I'll go put it back in my room. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you know a little bit more about dream sachets now, and maybe you'll make your own. Just as a warning, disclaimer, whatever, if you don't have any of these herbs, if you don't have some of these herbs, you don't need to do it exactly to what I have done. I have a very large apothecary and I have these things at my disposal, so I tend to use them in large quantities, but most people only use a pinch or 2 of things in everything they do, and that's just as valid as filling up an entire sachet. If you only have a bag that's black, for like one of those little jewelry bags that's black and velvet, that works great. If you only have a Victoria's Secret bag, one of those little pink mesh ones, that works great too. Just use what you have on hand and don't think that you have to do it exactly step for step what I did, because magic is up to interpretation and whatever works for you is how it will work best. So take this, run with it, make it your own. Okay? Cool. But until next time, skull, my friends.